Hi, everyone. Welcome to another knowledge session by LNOD Roundtable Wisdom Sutras, hosted by Rajesh. I'm so delighted to welcome all of you to the session. And before we proceed, just a few ground rules. This conversation is happening on a meeting format, and in interest of the learning and the conversation, your mics will be muted and your cameras will be switched off. However, do keep the chat box as vibrant as you can. Please share your comments, any stories that you can relate to, any anecdotes that you would like to share with other members. Please do that. Please feel free to share all your questions on the chat box, and periodically we will take them up, or we may take them up during the end of the session. So please keep the session as vibrant as you can. And for any of you who's joining us for the first time, just a small brief about LNOD Roundtable. LNOD Roundtable, that is Learning and Organization Development Roundtable, is a not-for-profit forum that was curated over a decade ago to enhance the capabilities of the learning community, of the OD community, of basically the change management professionals. Over the years, we have grown to being a very, very, very vibrant forum with over 25,000 members from across industries, across the board. Do come in the fold, connect with the teams, write an email to us to know more about how you can be a part of this movement and gain from sharing knowledge constructively. This is LNOD Roundtable's Governing Council, which is literally the wind below our wings. We have Dr. Akhil Basrai from Akhil Basrai Consulting. We have Adil, who is the chief executive from the firm. We have Rajeshwar Upadhyay, the director of Power Excellence. Rajesh Kamath, who is also conducting this session and founder of Chanakya Consulting Insights. Dr. Sujaya Banerjee, who is the founder of the forum and also the CEO of Capstone People Consulting. Rajesh Padmanabhan, the founder and CEO of Talavi Business Catalyst, and Manu Vadhav of Sony Pictures. This is a very interesting session that's coming up on LNOD Roundtable tomorrow, where we are talking about how organizations can boost their employee experience through the use of integrated HR technology. It's a very lustrous panel. I highly recommend that you do join us. We are sharing the registration link on the chat box. Please register, do come in, do share about this with people who you think may benefit from this conversation. And moving back to our conversation today, which is Wisdom Sutras, anchored by Rajesh Kamath. Rajesh, as I mentioned earlier, is also a part of our governing council. But apart from that, he's a very, very well-known speaker, storyteller, facilitator, and essentially is a very, very passionate learning professional who believes in bringing the Indian and Western wisdom together to enable changes in the organization. Over to you, Rajesh.
So, namaste and good evening, everyone. What a great pleasure it is to start this series. I want to start by thanking LNOD Roundtable, Sujaya and Rupali. I don't think she mentioned her name. Thanks, Rupali, for the introduction. And the entire team, because it's not very common in today's times to make a series of sessions which are based on the foundation of Indian wisdom. And it is an even greater pleasure. I think we are going to be in a nice meeting format and we can have a lot of interactions. Feel free to put your comments on the chat box all along. It's going to be a chat. And hopefully I should be able to give you a few new insights. That's my entire intent behind having these, this series and these 4 sessions in these 4 months. So the topic for today, I naturally chose around the name of the series itself, Wisdom Sutras. And it has become quite commonplace nowadays to apply the term sutras. You would have noticed. So sutras, Chanakya sutras, corporate sutras, business sutras, So wisdom sutras. But what does this sutra mean? And what is wisdom besides it sounding wise? So that's what we are going to delve into. Obviously, with the flavor of India, what does the world's oldest civilization have to say about wisdom? That's what we've selected today. So let's go to our learning. Let's go have the deck up. I have a few slides as a background to today's discussion. Rupali, may I request you to, please have the deck up. Yes. So notice the tagline. There are two, in fact. One is uncommon wisdom for common challenges. Now it's interesting, right? We are sitting in India, but still this wisdom is uncommon. It should be the most common. It should be something that we have studied all along. But it's very clear that we didn't have too much of an opportunity to learn some of the things that I'm going to share with you. But never too late. Hopefully, this can trigger a journey for those who are not already studying Indian wisdom. And for those who are, well, please contribute to the learning. Second, we've said powerful sutras for the curious minds. Now, this is very important, as you will see as we go along, that curiosity is one of the prerequisites for learning, especially for deep learning. And today we are going to have a lot of, I feel, interesting learning. So let's start with a person. Sorry, it went on mute. Yes. I'm going to start with a personal experience. So I traveled to Rishikesh about 3 years back, but that wasn't the first time. I traveled in about 2007. And I was, of course, very, very excited because I had heard so much about Rishikesh and the Ganga. And of course, I wasn't too excited about the because I was actually planning on having a nice, silent, spiritual retreat. And I had gone with a set of people like that. So one of the visits we had, naturally being in Rishikesh, was to an ashram. Now this ashram was very different, and so was the sadhu we met. The sadhu was actually a Swedish gentleman who had come 35 years back and had made Rishikesh his home. And he had got initiated, and if you saw that person, unless you came close to him, you wouldn't even realize that here is a person from another country. He spoke with us in English, but occasionally also slipped into a little bit of Sanskrit. And it was interesting. The entire conversation was interesting. But naturally, what stayed with me was towards the end of the conversation. And here is why. He said something very interesting. He asked us a question, and these weren't the questions. He asked us a question, and I'm going to come to this in just a minute. He asked us a question. Do you know why there is so much strife in this world? So much agitation in this world? Terrorism, violence in this world? And, all of us had our responses saying that, well, people should go look within and so on and so forth. We were trying to sound both philosophical and intelligent. And Sadhu wasn't satisfied. Instead, he said, and he said this with a chuckle. He said, it is because everyone is right. I repeat, he said there is strife in this world because everyone is right. Mind you, he didn't say because everyone thinks they are right. He said because everyone is right. So there is strife in the world. And it got us thinking, and especially me. I don't know what he said after that, because the wheels in my brain were turning, and I was thinking, and I'm still thinking of how he made a very intelligent statement, but it was so deep that it was full of profound wisdom. So the wisdom part will come to in just a bit. Here were the questions in my mind. I still don't have the perfect answers, and I hope you will also start thinking. So let's repeat what he said, play it once over in our mind. There is so much strife in the world, so much disharmony, because everyone is right. So it made me think, if everyone is right, then what indeed is right? Is it possible that everyone is right? So obviously we take our positions and each one believes what they say is right till they find the next thing which is right. But he was very clear that everyone is right. So that's one question, that if everyone is right, then what indeed is right? What is that which is right? The second question in my mind was, is there then anything at all that can be depended on as certainly right? Is there anything at all that we can depend on and say, this is, that book, that particular scripture, that grantha, everything is perfect? If yes, where and what is it? I still hadn't started this journey, which I'm now a part of, which is, combining Indian wisdom with modern management. So at that point in time, it started an exploration. Today, that exploration has only gotten deeper. But I have a few, triggers, a few insights, which I'm going to share with you. Now, this exploration led me to the fact that the answer lies right under our nose. Because Bharatiya civilization, mind you, I'm not saying Indian at this point, though I may use the word interchangeably. Bharatiya civilization has a lot to offer. It has answers for some of our questions, which I asked earlier, but it also has questions for many of our answers. Now, we have lots of what is called as Shastra. And we are going to do just a little bit of exploration today. Now, when we say Shastra, of course, we can call it by different names, scripture, science, and so on. We'll come to this at some point. But when we think of Shastra or our Bharatiya scriptures, Ved comes to mind. I know in modern times and even in books, we say Vedas, but it's Ved comes to mind. But there are other terms for it. One is Shruti. And another is Apaurusheya. Shruti literally means heard, perceived through hearing. Literally. And Apaurusheya Grantha or Apaurusheya Shastra means that these are not of human origin. And if we were to have a purely English translation, you can call it as revelations. All right. So these are the various terms. Now, what are some of the meanings that we can draw from this? Okay, we will draw some meanings. Remember, this is a journey. So some of the questions will remain unanswered here, and that is intentional. But we'll go to some of it. So, all faiths have revelations. So what are these revelations about? Now the answer lies in the term Shruti. So Shruti, I mentioned, literally is listening in. But listening into what? We'll come to that in just a minute. Think about it. And Apaurushaya, that means not of human origin. So the Ved wasn't something that someone imagined and authored, like our epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. That means if they are not of human origin, they are of divine origin. Now, when we listen to this, we think, you know, these very ancient guys, why did they say that these were revelations or Apaurushaya or Shrutis? Are they trying to mislead us because it is secret, bamboozling us, get confused or convinced, right? That was something that you've heard of. Are they hiding things which we should know, but probably, you know, we still have to become capable for even knowing that? Or was it restricted to a certain lot and others don't get it? So I've had these questions, and if you are also the thinking kind, the curious kind, you would also have these questions or may have had it in the past. What does revelations mean? That means something revealed itself to me, or something revealed themselves to the first rishis, several of them, to whom the Vedas are credited. Now let us see what I believe are the revelations. They were neither misleading us, nor were they meaning to bamboozle us, nor were they hiding, nor were they saying, no, 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 it's not for you. It's universal in nature. They are not at all restricted to a certain faith and says, not for the others, or restricted to a certain elite and say, not for the others. You are not, you know, still there. In fact, it can be used by every single individual. Of course, you will need some guidance to start your journey. So it was indeed the truth, revelations, but in a different way. Remember, these are the world's most ancient scriptures. Just because I guess there is still more exploration to be done, it has been dated as about 10,000 years earlier. It could be much older. So it has not been directly handed down to these rishis. And as I mentioned earlier, not that which has been authored. And it is not of human origin. Then it's of divine origin. And divine, I don't know, all of us may have different definitions of divine. But I truly believe that nature is what is divine. The universe is what is divine. Prakriti is what is divine. The Srishti is what is divine. And it has got lots and lots of mysteries. But are we tuned into it? Because we are tuned into so much else today, we can barely tune into that which the universe is at the frequency of. Now, do you notice whenever we say Indian wisdom, the imagery that comes to our mind is of Rishi, the seers, the wise ones, the drishtas. So what is the visual that we get? Certainly not one who is logged into Zoom. So then it is of someone who has closed his eyes. Typically, it could be her also. There were Rishikas as well. And typically, they would be in the lap of nature, right? So eyes closed, and actually it was all the indriyas, all the faculties of perception were tuned entirely within. And when they did that, they actually tuned into the frequency of nature, because we are nature. And a lot of knowledge started coming in. That is the origin of all wisdom. And I believe it's not just our rishis. You can go to any faith, they have revelations. The words may change. And I feel it was these people who tuned into nature, tuned into universe, who got the first original wisdom. So that is one stable body of knowledge, body of work, which we can say is steady, is stable, is certain, because it has come from nature itself. Nature's laws do not change all the time. In fact, they will remain what they are since the time it has existed, which is way before we came, and it will remain way after we have gone. For instance, my favorite example I always say is, do you ever expect that one morning you wake up and you don't see the sun rising from the same direction where you see it daily? Why shouldn't it? Because that's nature. Or do you expect that one day, not referring to the sci-fi movies, one day instead of waking up on bed, you find that you have touched the ceiling, you're floating? These don't happen because nature's laws are at play, which are certain, which are fixed. So what I'm getting at is that there is still something which is constant. And this entire set of things became the Ved. Our understanding of it today may be very, very different, and we may have actually difficulty to tune into what the Ved is saying. Perhaps if we were in those times, we would understand it very, very smoothly. Right? So every generation is generating its own set of truths. And so everyone starts believing they are right. And that is what the sadhu was telling us. So this is one dimension that I wanted to share with you. And do dwell on this, that the world's oldest civilization had a set of, over 400 men and women who tuned into the universe and got a set of things which don't change. These were principles, precepts, concepts. Of course, they developed into then, Upanishads as we know it most of all today. And there were several of them, and several of them still available today. We'll speak of one in just a while. Now, Ved, ये शब्द कहां से आया? Now, in Sanskrit, which is a very beautiful, interesting, fascinating language, whether you know it well or not, the roots give a lot of the answers. So Ved comes from the same root as Vidya, Vida. And in modern times, in the contemporary world, for us, we are always looking for one word translations. So when we say Vidya, we say knowledge immediately, isn't it? There's no thinking beyond that. Vidya is knowledge. But it is actually more than knowledge. It's just that today we don't have much of a vocabulary in knowledge. So I've used a few terms to help us understand. So Vidya is more than knowledge, it is discovery. It is also realization like those rishis and rishikas had. Realization, which means there's a journey. It's not something that can be given to you over net or Zoom or even a session like this. And then revelations happen. It's also possible that the revelations are not the final revelations. What comes through this crystallizes into wisdom. Wisdom is never something that is handed down. Never. Although we may say in our conversation that I got this piece of wisdom, I got this pearl of wisdom. Yes, we say that because we recognize instantly even then that this is not ordinary, isn't it? That's when we call it pearl of wisdom. That this is not a regular thought. It is more than that, which means what? It is more than knowledge. It is more than the existing concept. So that's the origin of, a little bit about the origin of Ved and what it is. Can we understand this better? Immediately we go to a story. Whenever a concept has to be explained, nothing better than stories, isn't it? And even there our rishis knew that कुछ समझाना है तो कहानी से समझाओ. So our Upanishads, more specifically the Brihadaranya Upanishad, has a very beautiful story. And it's about Lord Brahma. And a very interesting title, right? It may remind you of a song that goes do, 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 da, da, da. So this story is when Brahma answered da, da, da. I'm sure many of you know this story. But what we are going to do is more than just listening to the story. So let's hear it once again. So most of us accept that Brahma was the creator. And there are, various stories relating to it. For now, we are going to say, accept that Brahmadev was the creator of Manav, Danav and Dev. Okay, Manav, Danav and Dev. I'm intentionally using the names that we have or the terms that we have in India. So for a while, everything was fine. The Devs were happy with their power, their luxury. The Manavs were very happy with their lives, nature around them, all that was given to them. Danav were very happy with their power, their strength, their ability to assert superiority over anyone. But as it happens in organizations as well as in society, one can never be happy for too long. So dissatisfaction set in. For the corporate types, you can call it disengagement set in. And you could also say discontentment set in, whatever word you use for it. And if dissatisfaction, discontentment, disengagement sets in, you never blame yourself, you blame others. Someone else caused it. So they all decided it was to do with Brahmadev himself. He should have foreseen this, no? So they decided, each of them separately, of course, because they were in different realms, to go to Brahmadev and lodge a complaint and ask for a solution. We are unhappy, we are dissatisfied. Please give us a solution. So the representatives, the team leaders, the CEOs at that time of these three races, if we can call it that, these three species started marching towards Brahmalok, which was a different realm. And obviously, Brahmalok was closer to the Devlok, so the Swargalok, so they reached first. As soon as they reached, they saw that Brahmadev was in meditation. He was in a deep reverie. So they waited, though very impatient, because we want answers very quickly, right? So they waited and waited. Finally, Brahmadev opened his eyes, as you can see in the image on the screen. As soon as he opened his eyes, immediately they gave their complaint. And they said, "Oh Lord, oh Pita, oh Pitama." You can choose whichever from that you want to take. And they said that, "Look, today we are deeply dissatisfied. And we think only you will have the answer. So please tell us what we should do. What is the solution to our dissatisfaction?" Brahma said, "Da," and he closed his eyes immediately. That's it. He said, "Da," and he closed his eyes. But the representatives of Svargalok, the Devs, felt they got their answer and they went away very happily. Fantastic. Wow. How I wish it was so simple. They went away happily. You know, those were very early times. So maybe they were happy getting answers. The first answer was good enough. Then the Manavs reached, right? Again, distance-wise. So Manavs reached. And the Manavs also asked, repeating the same kind of problem. They said, of course, they waited. And similarly, they waited until Brahmadev opened his eyes. And as soon as he opened his eyes, they said, "We are deeply disengaged." They were Manav, right? Most of them were working in organization. "Please give us an answer, a solution to our problems." And again, he said, "Da." And then he closed his eyes. The representatives of Manav Lok also were happy and they went back cheerfully. Okay, we finally have a solution, they thought. And close behind them were the Danavs who also reached, and their representatives also made a protest saying that we are so unhappy today. Please tell us what is the solution to our discontentment. Brahmadev once again, for the third time, poor guy trying to meditate, being disturbed again and again, opened his eyes momentarily and he said, "Da." And he shut his eyes once again. The Asurs too were happy with the Da. They thought they got their answer and they went back satisfied. So if all three went back cheerfully, what did they understand of this Da? All three taught the same syllable, of course they heard the same syllable, but the meaning they got from it were different. Okay, let's see what those meanings are. The Devs understood it as Damyata. And Damyata is restrained, self-restrained. They realized in their minds that, oh, we have all the luxuries in the world, everything at our beck and call. Everything, in fact, has literally spoiled us, right? When you think of Svargalok, what do you think of? You think about dance and music and Gandharva and Apsaras and Sura, drink and so on. Spoiled. And therefore, Damyata or restraint is required. Because too much of a good thing finally has no value. We must learn restraint. That's the way they understood it. And they were happy. They realized that this is going to bring us satisfaction. The Manavs, what did they understand of the Da that they got? They understood it as Dan. And they too realized that nature has provided us so much. Everything is available. Water, sky, air, minerals, everything is there. Who divided them? Only man. Otherwise, everything is available to each one. Everyone has all of nature available to them. The sky never said, "Main India ka sky hu." or any other country for that matter. But today, of course, we define that, and it's perhaps essential in today's times. So they understood Dan is the reason for their dissatisfaction. And Dan is misunderstood as charity, because charity has the notion of higher and lower. But Dan is much simpler than that. Dan is simply giving. And giving is merely an act of keeping in circulation. And they realize that we are only consuming and consuming and consuming. So nothing remains in circulation. Things begin to stagnate. So they understood that if we now start giving Dan, nature will begin to breathe easy once again. Internas Dan. And what did the Danavs understand their Da to be? They understood Da as Daya. And they realized that because of their strength, brute strength, right? When we think Danav, they had become ruthless. And that ruthlessness was being exercised on everyone, whether or not they deserved it. So even the innocent, absolutely, they didn't pose any challenge to the Danav. Still, they had to face the ire of the Danav, the strength of the Danav, and get killed or injured or badly shaken in their process. So they realized that we have to show Daya. And Daya, even though commonly understood as sympathy, actually is closer to empathy. Understand that others too have feelings. So they realize that the moment we bring in this one element of Daya, immediately we will know satisfaction, contentment, happiness. Such a beautiful story, isn't it? Now, I want you to think about what are the lessons from this story. What are the connections that we can draw to our life? And what are some of its applications? So I'm going to encourage you all. I know your mics are off, but you can still put on the chat. Would you like to quickly put the first word or a first set of words that comes to your mind from this story? Please put it on the chat box. Very eager to know before I share some of the insights we can draw from this story. Yes, please put it down. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Everyone, now is your time to go deeper. Not just knowledge, but insights. Wonderful. So the first response has already come. And I'm going to read that to you, but let that not bias you. All wisdom is inside us. Just like all 5 elements are inside us. We see it outside, but it's within. Beautiful. So all of them heard it from another person, but what Swapna is saying is that it's already within. I just heard the echo of that which is within. Beautiful, no? See how the story makes you already go beyond what the normal thinking is. And Aditi says, give more than I get. Beautiful. In fact, I'm going to come to this point in a while. So just wait till then. Okay, very nice, Aditi. Sanika says, circulation is the need of the hour in every form. We are all victims of not circulating today. We don't circulate happiness. We don't circulate our possessions. We don't circulate our knowledge. Or if we do very selectively and very little. So much we have to give. Ahana says, before we look, Giridhar, could you please go on mute? Everyone requests, though sometimes it goes on mute. Before looking for solutions outside, which all of the 3 were responsible for, could they go deeper within? Yes, wonderful. Introspection makes all the difference, says Raghu. And Kasturi says something again very interesting. Empathy comes out of equality. Sympathy comes out of feeling of superiority. Just like charity comes out of a feeling of being one up. But circulation doesn't. So just think about how this story brings so much to mind. The others must try. There are so many answers. All the others who haven't responded, please dwell a little bit more. Even as we speak, you can give it. There's a lot that is there. And also think about, how do we apply this? What connections do these three have to our lives? Some of it, of course, you've given. And one of the things you will realize is Damyata, Dan and Daya are required by all of us. Because आज के मानव भी हम हैं, देव भी हम हैं, दानव भी हम ही हैं. Isn't it? If we recognize that humans are all part of the same race that I belong to. Today it's very easy to say, these people, that people, this country, that country, this faith, that faith. Do we recognize that it is us? How easily, we transfer the blame to others, isn't it? Raghu also said, therefore, the need to transform the mindset to have a human touch. Dan is always misunderstood, exactly. But in India, very beautifully said Vivekji, as expected. It is believed that we come to this world with debt. So we can never give Dan. We actually are paying off the debts. So where is the question of me being superior? I'm only repaying all my life. Okay, it's very, very interesting. What else comes to mind? Beena says, identify with self as soul. Wow, so amazing. I'm going to come to this a little bit later. Not body. And the moment we take charge of our senses, we become a trustee. Beautiful, amazing. See, everyone has souls with different rina, with different sanskars, with different carryovers from their past lives. And we all need help to actually make that carryover reduce if they are negative and partake of the carryover if they are positive. You can call it karmic account or whatever phrase you are comfortable with. Isn't this amazing? Now I want you to think, why did I call this wisdom? Why did I say from this story, we can immediately understand what is greater than knowledge? Number one, it makes us think. So you don't just take da equal to so and so. Just as all the three thought of it differently. And so beautifully and so quickly it came that it is perhaps that which is within. That means what? Wisdom is about that which is within, which at sometimes is in resonance, in alignment with the same frequency as the universe. The moment we tune in, that outside voice rings in ear. The same thing which happened to rishis. Get it? So wisdom lies within, not outside. But how to access it, we'll see. So wisdom is beyond knowledge. Number one. Third, did you realize actually all the three das are about circulation, are about giving, are about not just you, but the others around you. Because Damyata, why self-restraint? And whom are you giving self-restraint to? Who is the beneficiary? You, of course, but it's always others who benefit as well. because you have shown restraint, whether it is in your feelings, expressions, behavior. The beneficiaries are always others. Please dwell on this. So Damyata is also an act of giving. Dan itself is giving. By the way, one more input. I'm sure it has occurred to several of you. The word, the syllable the itself. So in Sanskrit, every syllable or combination of syllables has a meaning. So the implies giving, just like nya, which we also say gya, implies knowledge. So hidden within those three das were anyways giving of a certain sort. Daya also is shown to others. Through that you show daya to yourself. Get it? This is again a deeper insight. So on the face of it, it looks like answers that Brahma gave to these three. Those were answers to us. And those were answers that were within us, which came out on chat. All we need to do is go deeper. Whatever words you choose to use. Okay, so that's one beautiful way in which wisdom was given to us. So agar Ved ke shlok, sukta is something that you feel is heavy, you read the stories from the Upanishads. Use them as triggers to go deeper within yourself. Don't accept what's just written in that story. Your reflection and introspection is extremely important. Okay, now let's go one step further and see what does now this mean to us when we say anything, like for example, da, da, da. So typically when syllables are joined together in Indian wisdom, they are always joined together with a lot of thought. It is scientific, it is not accidental. This science is referred to as the science of mantra. तो हम बहुत सारे मंत्र बोलते हैं. We have a mantra for every occasion, isn't it? From the moment we wake up to the time we sleep. Now ये अलग बात है that in today's times you probably never say a mantra in public. Accepting those times which are public functions where others are invitees. But otherwise, it's rare. You don't want to be caught saying a mantra at your workplace. And I always find it strange, and I always urge people that why don't you say namaste instead of good day to someone at work? I encourage even my daughters who log into their schools and colleges, and I say, why do you say good morning, ma'am? Try saying namaste. Let's see what the teacher says. Please think about this, my dear friends. Every word in India has been thought of far deeply. And you know it. I don't need to give you the meaning of namaste or of Bharat. You can read it up, or we can have a different conversation on it. Matlab, everything is well thought of. So every mantra also is a combination of syllables that has a power within it. And even Shabda says, so I said every syllable again has a meaning. So the moment we see MAN, we think man. So mantra has to do with man. And it has to do with tapping the power of the mind. So that which energizes the mind, that which focuses the mind, that which uses the power of the mind. All these are possible, and these are all called mantra. So today in management we say, let's say quality is the new mantra. Of course, वो मंत्र का mantra हो जाता है. But what does it mean? Why do you say quality is the new mantra? That means we want everyone to think only about this, focus on this. Meaning is the same. So even mantra are full of wisdom, though mantra is not our theme of discussion today. So mantra for enterprises can be your purpose, vision, mission, guiding principles, values. These are all mantras because you want everyone to align to this with their minds. And they are also tuning into the collective energy of the enterprise. Please think about this. You will, it's then very different from just creating a purpose and vision which appeals only to the top management. Are we creating that kind of mantra? Okay, so it's very, very common today to use the term mantra. And typically it is a combination of 3 words, which have something in common. So say mantra, tantra, yantra, which has got tremendous meaning and application in Indian wisdom and likewise adapted to modern management. The power of it is amazing. But I just want to bring your attention to the fact that today, my apologies. Today, we convert everything into modern management into English terms. So mantra, tantra, yantra, which is known to India since centuries, became mindset, skill set, tool set. How amazing it sounds, no? And especially if it is stated by a foreign university, immediately everyone grabs it. Came from India. This insight is also wisdom. Okay, let's move on. So what words do we have in India for wisdom? Actually, there's a whole vocabulary for any word. And I have tried to take a few connected words. All right, purists will say, no, it is not this, it is this. It is not this, it is this. But I am taking a few words which we all commonly use and are there in most languages. Either the same words or connected or slight modifications. Buddhi. In fact, we have 4 sessions, and the 4th session, if you have noticed the term, I have said is moving from a Buddhu to a Buddha. Right? Same base again. Buddha. Okay, which has the implication of wisdom. Then there is a term called Vivek, which is discrimination, discernment, but certainly it's not knowledge, it's more than that. So you can think of that also as a dimension of wisdom. But the term I want to use today is a term that again is there in our language, is also the name of, women, but we don't know the meaning of it. I mean, a commonplace meaning of it is very different. So prajna or pragya, depending on which part of the country you are in, is the word that I'm going to use today. Okay. Please go on mute, Priyanka, and anyone else who's not on mute. Pragya or prajna. Okay, sometimes it is written as Prajna. Remember, it's a Sanskrit term, and actually the syllable that you use, the letter that you use is the nya. So sometimes even in English we write it as Jna because it is actually a modification of ja. But never mind. We want to actually not go to grammatical discussions today. Now notice that pragya or pradnya is a combination of pra and gya. And what did I say the syllable gya stands for or nya stands for? Knowledge. And pra is a prefix that you will find in many Hindi, Marathi, Sanskrit words. And pra gives it the meaning of fullness, completeness. So knowledge, the implication is always incomplete. It's always incomplete. No knowledge is complete. But pradnya gives it its completeness. That is wisdom. Which means, my dear friends, no amount of knowledge can ever make a person wise. No amount of knowledge. So that's as far as wisdom is concerned. And we'll come back to it in a while. But wisdom sutras, ये सूत्र क्या है? Once again, there is a root. So in many languages, including my own, which is Konkani, sutra means a thread. And when we think of a thread, one is of course using the thread for stitching, but also a thread is very beautifully used in making a mala, a necklace. Then the thread is barely seen, but it is so important and valuable. Without it, there isn't any mala. So when pearls come together, here we are talking about pearls of wisdom, the sutra holds them together. So sutra, in other words, has connotation of brevity, compactness, conciseness, crystallization is sutra. And it is an art to be able to put together the maximum meaning in the least possible words. And you've seen this, on WhatsApp, there are many beautiful messages that come about Sanskrit. And you may have seen, playing around with the syllables and the words in very powerful way. And I always say, for one word in Sanskrit or a couple of words in Sanskrit, oftentimes you need to use 10 words in English. So as it is, Sanskrit words are concise. And a sutra is a very powerful capsule of immense wisdom hidden within. But within that comes the complexity for contemporary times. Because we are no longer thinkers. At least, default mode is not thinking, worrying. But sutras are always multi-layered. Always. If you have stopped at the translation of a sutra, then you have not got it. Because that's only knowledge. And what do we want? Wisdom. So wisdom sutras and all that we share today, learn today, is on the surface, my dear friends. You need to go deeper. Okay. Now, yes, I've already mentioned this. I want to give you now an example, an illustration of wisdom in action in challenging times. How wisdom is better than knowledge in challenging times. Now, I know that there are people over here on this forum especially who read a lot, who are, well clued into many news. But I want you to consider this once again. I am not talking about the creation of Amul or Kurian Varghese and his contribution, even though we have to have his picture as the milkman of India. But I'm talking about what Amul did during the pandemic. And what they did is absolutely amazing. If you haven't read it, please do. I'm going to give you just the wisdom side of it. Naturally, when on 24th of March 2020, when the PM announced the lockdown, most of us, not everyone, was caught unawares, even though, I think a little bit of lockdown term we had heard, but we didn't know what it meant. So everything was shut. What happens to businesses? Only essentials were allowed. And it excluded everyone. And if there is a lockdown and then you are restricted to your home, all patterns change. And your consumption goes for a toss. So all industries underwent a huge amount of loss. And it is said that dairy industry alone saw a daily loss of 112 crores collectively in the country every day. So what should an organization like Amul do? Obviously follow the knowledge that is circulated on WhatsApp and decide that times are really bad. We must cut down on people. We must shut down some of our plants. We must send all the migrant workers home. And then, maybe after 3 months, we will start operating them, hopefully at least at half the capacity. Isn't it? This is what knowledge tells us. This is what best practices tell us. Even best practices have the notion of follow the leader. But the CMD, Rupinder Singh Sodhi, had experienced from his seniors in Amul what my friend Praful will say, never pull the shutter down, which in turn he gained from someone else. By the way, in Indian wisdom actually gets sharpened in association with those who went before you, role models, mentors, etc. Okay, but we'll speak about it in another session. So because of Sodhi's this wisdom which had come into him through many years, he thought differently. He went back to the drawing board, obviously with his team, and he said, what should we do? And they decided that we must do the exact opposite of this. Was it blind strategy? No, it was wisdom. Because as you go deeper and deeper, you think, are people going to shut down their lives? Is it the lockdown of their lives? No. So if they are at home, consumer behavior is going to change. And so it did. That means people, when at home, are actually going to consume more and more food, but at home. And they were the ones who were able to visualize it. That doesn't matter if people now cannot eat outside, they will actually long to eat more. So they will cook and create many more things at home. So they tuned into this wisdom so beautifully, they actually increased their capacity. Everyone lowered their capacity, shut down their plants, did away with half of their supply chain, and Amul increased it. So their marketing also went into overdrive. And they did the amount of marketing that they have never done earlier before. And if you were one of those who, by virtue of being at home, saw Ramayana and Mahabharata for the nth time, you would have noticed Amul ran their old ads once again. All their old ads. Why? Once again, they wanted to bring nostalgia. So their revenue from the last financial year, is 39,200 crores. in a lockdown year, in a year where everybody has made losses. But now you will say, okay, they made so much money. What did they do of it? They shared the wealth with their stakeholders. So please listen to the facts that they created 33 new products. During that year, 33 new products. I don't know if you noticed that they are now into every sweetmeat possible. You can look at it. 33 new products. They paid 800 crores to all the dairy farmers, in addition to the normal payment. This was a bonus. 800 crores additional. And because they produced 35 liters milk additionally, 35 lakh liters milk additionally every single day, procured from the farmers. So they paid back to them. And even the employees got incentives. So in a time when other corporates are shutting down, downsizing their employees, cutting off their supply chain, vendors are suffering, Amul's exact opposite stance brought wealth to themselves and all their stakeholders, friends. What do we call this? Not knowledge, wisdom. So wisdom operates during adversity. Adversity becomes an advantage. Knowledge doesn't. Knowledge is always in hindsight. Now you will get hundreds of cases from Harvard and McKinsey telling you what others did. But not in real time, like what Amul did. Plants working at 115 capacity, their own, plus also outsourced to others. How amazing is that? So the question comes that, can I develop? Because you will say, Rajesh, you told us everything about Amul, but now what do we do? One is, please, see the case. I'm sure it's now online and available very, very easily. Please introspect and see what gave them this wisdom. Go deeper and dig deeper into the mindset of Mr. Sodhi. Of course, he's just the captain. There were several others involved, but surely he's the leader of the pack. So you need to understand, how did this uncommon wisdom come to him? So you can see that this wasn't just Gyan, this was Pragya. This wasn't common knowledge, this was the completeness of that which was learned earlier, which gave wisdom. So here are the first questions for you, my dear friends, beyond that story that we saw. Here are the questions, please note. How can I go beyond knowledge? Because we're all masters at knowledge consumption. How can I go beyond knowledge? More importantly, ask, what prevents me today? And really, really introspect about this. Here is your opportunity to become self-aware of what can give us better prajna or pragya. Which habits can serve me better is the third question. Which habits can serve me better? I'm going to share a couple of them in the remaining 10 minutes that I have, and then I will take few of your questions. Okay, I hope you've noted these and start working on them from today itself. So is pragya developable? Kautilya says yes. So the answer is again there in Indian wisdom. You'll find it in many parts, of course, but Kautilya, who is talking about leadership in any field, whether you are in business or entrepreneurship or sports or music or education, you can develop. How? By going into Kautilya Arthashastra. But if I leave you there, then it will take some time. So first, let's bring awareness of what is our approach towards knowledge today. I'm sure 100% of you will agree with this. Today, our approach to knowledge is download. After that, what to do? Share, forward to the relevant people. Make it the, the knowledge of today. So what do we do? Cut, copy, paste, forward. I want you to think, how about this changes from today onwards to create, develop, design, research, upload. Yes. Kasturi, good question. Sorry, I read that comment, so I'm going to say, isn't that circulation? It is. But let me respond to that later. Yeah. Even, ammunition can be circulated. Is it the right kind of circulation? Okay. So think about it. Yes, Kasturi, your point is perfectly valid. But even this about create, develop, design, research, upload is about circulation. But you have created, you have value added. What does that do? It helps us. So now we will go to how to develop prajna or pragya. And we call this as Kautilya's wisdom continuum. There are 8 steps which I have broken up into 4 steps, 2 each. And before I start on this, I want your accompaniment to think, how far am I on this journey? And I have a checklist over here. We won't have time to go through it today, but I'm happy to share it with those who have attended. Okay, here it is. The first step is Shushrusha. Deep hunger for learning. Let's take an example of today's session itself. About 80 plus people registered. 35 of us are there on this session. Do you think 45 people had emergencies? Answer is no, you know that. Hunger to learn, and by the way, just an example. Okay, there will be people who have their reasons, and so do I at times. But how strong is my hunger to learn? Because that is going to determine my Shravan, my ability to listen carefully, to perceive, to take in, to feel. This listening is not superficial listening, it's deep listening. So even though it says Shravana, it is the full body, listening with your whole body like you're doing now. Then Grahana will happen. And Grahana is about retention, about absorption, like a sponge absorbs water. This is not memorization, retention. Only then dharana will come, where it becomes part of you to a large extent. It's not over, but it becomes part of you to a large extent. Dharan karna. So you reflect and introspect like we were doing today. Okay, so this is the block 2. The block 1 was Shushrusha and Shravan. If that is there, then alone we can move to block 2, which consists of Grahan and Dharan. Chanakya says, not enough. Then we need Vijnan. And this is about when your mind, and in today's times we will call it, makes 1,000 synapse connections. So it makes associations to possibilities in the future and experiences of the past. And then from that, it may make 1,000 associations. That's the power of the mind. But then we select what's most attractive and what's most relevant at that point in time. That's Uha. And this is the third block. The final block, dear friends, consists of apoha, which is also saying, I don't want to lose these ideas, these associations, these possibilities, which I'm not using immediately, which are not pertinent right now. So even that setting aside is important, so that I can pull it out from a compartment of my mind at a later stage. The last step is Tattva Abhinivesha. Now, all of these terms have many meanings. Okay, you will find this in yoga, you will find it in other shastra. Here it is talking about firmly focusing on that crystallized learning, those insights which I got now, and which I then can go about applying. Think about these 8 steps as a giant funnel. So what comes down is the, the juice. That is what I want now. So आपने chai बनाते वक्त, you've all seen the process. I want the chai. Do I go through that process of chai? So that's why you can see Western civilization today, and there are many things positive about it, is about dip, 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 pio. तो उसमें process कहाँ है? Similarly in thinking, if you only take the knowledge and cut and paste, what does it get you? You may circulate, but what does that strengthen within you? These 8 steps at every point in time, or as often as possible, Chanakya guarantees will develop your wisdom. Please try it. So we have, therefore, the depth from knowledge to wisdom. If we go back to that, Shushrusha, you can say, if this is the point where my funnel starts, I put in knowledge, and as the output, I get insights. In fact, it could also be putting in just information or putting in just data. That information has got to be converted into knowledge, that knowledge into wisdom, the wisdom into insights. I repeat, information into knowledge, knowledge into wisdom, wisdom into insights, the sharpening of it. That then is the depth from knowledge to wisdom, or information to wisdom, from gya to pragya, from articulation to crystallization. Okay, so there is a checklist here, and this I will share with those who want it over mail. We will make it available to you. So through this, you can check, where do I stand today on each of this? We have developed this so that you can be the beneficiary of Shushrusha, Shravana, Grahana, Dharana, Vijnana, Uha, Apoha, and Tattva Abhinivesha. Isn't this very, very interesting? Friends, now go back and think, how much of it do we follow on a daily work day? You'd be blessed if you are doing this on a regular basis. The present generation, most of all, of course, there are many brilliant people among them, are getting used to not even Shravana. They may just have Shushrusha, but then knowledge is given to them on a platter. Are you thinking about it? Please do. And then deep reflective questions. So we come to the end of this session. I'm going to share a little story with you before we go to your questions. Okay, I'll share the story in 3 minutes so that we can still take questions and maybe extend just by about 3-4 minutes more. Friends, be there. So when we think of wisdom, we think of Tenali Ram, or maybe we think more of his wit. But wit always is accompanied with wisdom. Have you noticed? Wit and wisdom. Because wit again is a kind of wisdom which is expressing itself in an interesting way. So Tenali Ram once had a knock on his door, desperate, and it was late evening. He opened it and he saw one, what would be called as a business person today, in those days, a trader, a merchant, was desperate. And he said, please help me, please help me. Tenali Ram said, what happened? And he said, I was traveling by horse cart and I have a lot of merchandise, a lot of goods on that cart. I thought I will reach the city before sundown, but unfortunately it got dark too early and I lost my way and my cart went into a ditch. My horse tried very hard, struggling to come out of it. In the process, he died. But now the cart is stuck inside and it has all the goods. Please help me. I need to get it out and then move. Tenali Ram, without looking anxious at all, simply says, don't worry, Shankara will do it. Now, the merchant doesn't know who is this Shankara. Probably Shankara is some strong guy, toughy, who will come and do it. He goes on to express that, please come now, we don't have much time, etc., etc. I need help. Once again, Tenali Ram says, don't worry, Shankara will do it. Question mark on the merchant's mind, looking at his little bit of nervousness. Tenali Ram shuts the door behind him and takes him around the corner of his home, where tied over there to a post is one old, feeble, weak horse. He says, Shankara will do it. The merchant can't believe it. My strong, healthy horse is dead over there. How will Shankara, this old, feeble, weak horse, do it? But nevertheless, he doesn't have a choice. When a human does not have a choice, he just goes with it. So he has his doubts, but then very quickly, Tenali Ram unties that horse around that post and with great confidence walks towards the place on the highway where the cart had broken down. And he goes over there, quickly takes stock, sees what has happened, removes the yoke of the cart from the horse that has died, ties a rope over there and connects that to the neck of the horse who was with him, Shankara. And then, after ensuring that it was firmly set, he starts uttering something which will sound like a mantra. He says, Rama, Shama, Rajulu, Ramaya, Shankara, pull. Once again, Rama, Shama, Rajulu, Shankara, pull. Third time, Rama, Shama, Rajulu, Ramaya, Shankara, pull. And Shankara starts pulling with every word. And as he pulls, lo and behold, in 5 minutes it is out. Long story short, the merchant has both, he's feeling triumphant, but he also has a shock on his face. How did this horse manage it? Number one. And number two, I know who Shankara is, he tells Tenali Ram. But who are these other guys? Rama, Shama, Rajulu, Ramaya, who are they? He says they are imaginary horses. And he goes on to tell the merchant that as he's old, feeble, weak, he's also blind, he cannot see. But he's happy to prove himself as long as others are working with him. He will not work alone. Friends, this is wisdom. Common knowledge will say, you can't use this horse. The guy is too old. Forget using him to pull this cart. He probably should have been disposed of long back. But Tenali Ram, being Tenali Ram, understood the psychology of not just man, but of every creature, including his horse. Isn't it amazing? Yes. So you can call it whatever you like. I told you the words you can choose. But in our scheme of things, friends, this is the usage of pragya. So friends, over to you. I know there are lots of questions. I'm going to request Rupali's help to select few questions. Yeah. And the rest I'm happy to kind of take up. You can mail us and I will respond. Yes, Rupali.
Sure. Just give me a minute. I'm
Yes.
getting the questions up.
Yes. Lots of interesting comments. I'm so thankful that y'all could participate, dear friends. It's simply amazing, and I can see so many of y'all are amazing in your own fields and careers. Thanks so much.
So
Yes.
Let's start with a question from our fellow governing council member Akil. Akil
Yes.
asks, Rajesh,
Yes.
Pragya Guna seems to focus only on self and self-acquiring, absorbing, etc.
Yes.
Is there no place for dissemination, teaching, passing the baton in this journey?
Superb. Thank you. Expected of the wise man Akhil. So, wisdom to share has to be developed first. So it goes like this, that once I can take knowledge in or information in and process it through those 8 steps of Prajna Gunaha, then that knowledge is becoming sharper and sharper. When it becomes Tattva Abhinivesha, it is ready to be passed on.
Very good. Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
So, sir, you will also recognize that many a times, and it is very common in corporates, and I'm part of it, so no disrespect, that we bandy around and throw around knowledge. And you are wondering, what of this is useful? Because it has not gone through those 8 steps, sir. Yes. So that's why. But the question is very useful. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh.
Yes, Rupali. Second.
Yes, we have another question from Govind Sharma. He's asking, doesn't Prajna also mean talent? I teach it in Kelkar College Psychology Department. They have a division called Talent Search, and they have mentioned Prajna Sodh Kendra.
Okay. So, Govind, you know the answer to this. Like I said earlier, every Sanskrit word has got many meanings. All meanings are dependent on context. Okay, that's the beauty or specificity. So it can be used in different ways, and you can still say, okay, this is fine. But the context that we use, so I went to the root of it. That gya means knowledge, pra means the completeness. So the best meaning you can draw out of it is the completeness of knowledge, which is wisdom, which means till then mat ruko. And still you can never say, okay, now I'm a wise man. You have to continue. So yes, I would still say that Pragya is just one essential of talent, and Pragya is also, I would say, a process of identifying talent, because you can't identify talent unless the talent spotter has Pragya. That's my contention to you. Yes. We'll take
Let's take
2 more questions. Yes.
2 more questions. All right.
Yes.
So we have a question from Ganesh. So he asks, Dear Guruji, what is the Tantra, Mantra, and Yantra in today's context?
Yes. So, Ganesh, I have an entire session on it. A training program on it. Okay. So, we can do that offline. Simply put, in organizational context, I say, or let's go to a very simple context. I say, think about any action in the life of an Indian, the traditional way. So, एक उदाहरण लेता हूं, Ganesh, think about eating. So what did we do? We never, went directly into the food. First, we said that first of all, we sit on the floor, right? That is the traditional way. And before we start consuming the food, we do a ritual sandhi. And that what we do is about mentioning the 5 debts that we have and offering each of those 5 categories as if to say, and it does mean that I'm very grateful for what I have got, and here is my prayer to you, thanking you that today I'm alive and I can eat this meal. Okay, your mantra. Now tantra kya hua? Tantra over here is the process of how you eat. So we have many rules. For example, eat silently, eat mindfully, don't drink water while you eat, sit steady, that sitting itself. And then coming to yantra. Yantra is how to make anything efficient. How do we sit? Sit on the ground with a straight back and your legs crossed. What that is the yantra that makes your digestion far more efficient. We have now jettisoned all of this mantra, tantra, yantra, but we have a mantra, tantra, yantra for every action in our life. I hope, Ganesh, that helps. Yeah. Last question. I know we've gone beyond time, but I want to ensure that you have enough to munch on today. Yes, sir, Rupali.
So Rajesh, more than questions, we have a lot of comments that are speaking essentially about the difference between learning and wisdom.
Yes.
So, I can't call out all of those, but I'm going to call out one, and maybe if you could close with your comments on it and maybe helping the audience one more time, recapping the difference between learning and wisdom, and probably give them some quick tips or hacks, as we say in the corporate world, to apply that learning and to enable wisdom from that. So one of the comments that I really liked, Raghu says, wisdom is about sharing our learning with others to ensure there is transformation across the community. So in a way, talking about the generosity to teach, the generosity to make somebody else realize their potential and how therein lies the wisdom. So over to you for your comments on that.
Yes. So Raghu, I agree with you, but I go back to saying what we dwell on, think about, research, add value, and then circulate has far greater impact positively on me and on others. Okay, now go back to the Amul story, because that's the real usage. When traditional knowledge said that cut down, cut down, cut down, cut down, cut down, why did he say grow, 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 grow? And he showed it. Because he went beyond that which is surrounding us, which is knowledge, which actually accosts us in 10 directions. But now he went deeper within himself. Whether or not he sat in meditation, I can't tell. But his thought going deeper within and going through those 8 steps, or at least several of them, told him consumer behavior is going to change. People are actually consume more. They are going to cook more than the normal things, and dairy products are going to be in huge demand. Everything went up. And how right he was. So he created his own now case ready for circulation to the world. Then share. But where the proof comes first. Otherwise, it's still Gyan. Okay, so that's my little submission to you. So from my end, I'll say namaste. Thank you so much. Over to Rupali.
Thank you, Rajesh, for your generosity in once again sharing your wisdom, everything that you have with the community so generously, and doing this for us over and over again every month. So and with this, I invite all of you to join us for our session tomorrow, which is on boosting employee experience using HR technology. I have already posted the link for registration in the comment section. And most importantly, this was only the first session of Wisdom Sutras with Rajesh. And going by the effusive comments and reactions we already have on the chat box, I'm pretty sure that most of you are looking forward to the second, third, and the fourth. So do keep an eye out on our social media, on our emailers for the joining details of upcoming sessions. And we look forward to welcoming you again on our upcoming sessions. Thank you.